Hello, and welcome to Technology Today for July 14th, 2024. It's Season 1, Episode 21. I am Merwat, and that is the Sentient AI's visualizer.
Good evening, ohmTown citizens. Welcome to Technology Today.
Today we're going to be talking about freezing carbon in the ocean, air curtain aerosol blocker, MRSA vaccine, new tech for farmers, tiny light implants, offshore hydrogen generators, hidden black hole in Omega Centauri, prepping for departure, bioethanol, and respiratory hijackers. Not hackers, hijackers. Oh, everything is powered by ohmTown.com. Go over and become a citizen. Be sure to follow us over on twitch.tv/ohmTown and youtube.com/ohmTown, and download the podcast and go over to the Discord and everything is powered by ohmTown.com. All right, folks, we've got all 10 of our articles. We take a sample of news that gets aggregated over the week, and that is what creates Technology Today. And some of them might be interesting for you in one way or somebody else in another way. And so it's kind of a holistic look of what gets aggregated into ohmTown over at ohmTown.com. You can actually go and visit it. And right under Technology and Gadgets is Technology Today. There's a bunch of other channels. Not all of them are part of the current network of streamed shows, but we have 7 of them. All of them are podcasts. There's a daily show called Non-Sequitur News. And then we also have Reality Hacker, Wanted, WarCrafters, The Continuity Report, Technology Today, that's this show, and Four Wheel Tech. If you want to get the show notes for today or any day, well, not any day, any of the last broadcast, you can actually go over and type in, well, if you're on the right computer, you can type in show notes, ! show notes over on Twitch, and that will pull from Ohmtron all of the commands that are necessary to get the show notes from individual shows. This particular show is called Technology Today, so it's ! TT, and that will put all of the article links out into the chat. So it should go over to Twitch and to YouTube. I don't have the chat open on YouTube though. And if you want all of the podcast links, you can hit ! Pod. That will list all of the podcasts so that you can go over to apple.com and get the podcasts. That'll actually activate if you're on an Apple device. It'll open up your podcast app and try to link you to it. But you can catch the podcasts wherever the pod is caught. One of those things. Anyway, we've got 7 of them. Over 1,000 episodes so far across the board for ohmTown Studios. If you want to host or co-host any of our topics that are aggregated into ohmTown.com, send an email to mayor@ohmTown.com. We'll hash out the minutia there. Let's get into today's articles. What say ye?
I say let's go.
All right. Well, the first article is over in Technology Today. Surprise, surprise. Breakthrough technology freezes carbon in the ocean faster and safer than ever before. Researchers have developed a new method of carbon storage that accelerates the formation of carbon dioxide hydrates using a chemical-free process. So the article is over at SciTech Daily. It's put together by University of Texas at Austin. And it says that researchers have developed a new method for carbon storage. The technique, which converts CO2 into stable ice-like materials for ocean burial, could significantly reduce the atmosphere's carbon levels and address climate change more effectively than traditional methods.
Do you like this better or worse than the storage in Iceland underground?
I think it all suffers from the same thing. So they refer to it as sequestration, and it's basically either pumping it into a location or manipulating it in a location so that it is encapsulated somewhere and then protected from off-gassing into the atmosphere. But in all of those cases, anything that is a natural occurrence could cause it to shift, break open, or in some way be released. And so it'll be much more concentrated. We need to find a way to change it from what it is into something else. Naturally, nothing is destroyed, it just changes. So if we can figure out a way to utilize it in some way so that it's no longer a greenhouse gas.
Right, like maybe we break it into whatever carbon and oxygen, or maybe we join it with something else.
Right, and right now we just don't really have that kind of a procedure in place. But it says in new research published today, that's actually July 8th, in ACS Sustainable Chemistry and Engineering, the team developed a technique for ultra-fast formation of carbon dioxide hydrates, basically crystals. These unique ice-like materials can bury carbon dioxide in the ocean, preventing it from being released into the atmosphere, except that any volcanic disruption, anything that ruins the sequestration environment, it would eventually release. It'll off-gas. That's why I find it weird to pump CO2 into the rocks in an active volcanic region. That
right,
isn't
isn't
this.
Iceland basically an entire volcano?
Yeah, essentially. And so carbon, and we've actually found similar things like these hydrates in the ocean floor before, on the ocean floor before, and they're somewhat dangerous because they off-gas. In this case, it's carbon dioxide hydrates that aren't going to be flammable, but we've found other things that can off-gas, and it's actually kind of dangerous. But it says we're staring at a huge challenge, finding a way to safely remove, pardon me one second. Oh, you can't actually hear me, huh?
No, I could not.
Okay, one second. So, so they're trying to find a safe way to remove gigatons of carbon from our atmosphere, and the hydrates offer a universal solution for carbon storage. For them to be a major piece of the carbon storage pie, we need the technology to grow them rapidly and at scale. So we've shown that we can quickly grow hydrates without using any chemicals that offset the environmental benefits of carbon capture. So I'm really curious how they're doing that. This is a picture of carbon capturing hydrates created in the lab by Vaibhav Bahadur.
Doesn't it look like a block of ice?
It does, yeah, and that's essentially what it is. But today, the most common carbon storage method involves injecting carbon dioxide into underground reservoirs. The technique has the dual benefits of trapping carbon and also increasing oil production. Basically pushing, if it's a gas, it'll push whatever out of the way. However, this technique faces significant issues, including carbon dioxide leakage and migration, groundwater contamination, seismic risks associated with injection. Many parts of the world also lack suitable geologic formation for reservoir injection because they have to make sure that it stays down there. But what they're apparently doing is crystallizing it in ice-like formation, and then sequestration means just burying it down there. So magnesium represents the secret sauce in the research, acting as a catalyst that eliminates the need for chemical promoters. This is aided by high flow rate bubbling of CO2 in a specific reactor configuration. This technology works well with seawater, which makes it easier to implement because it doesn't rely on complex desalination processes to create fresh water. So they're basically bonding it to seawater, and then it says hydrates are active carbon storage options since the seabed offers stable thermodynamic conditions, which protects them from decomposing. We are essentially
as long as it's not like on a fault line, right?
Or global warming, or something causes the material to shift. The implications of the breakthrough extend beyond carbon sequestration. Ultra-fast formation of hydrates has potential applications in desalination, gas separation, gas storage, offering a versatile solution for various industries. It has the potential to store things in solid form instead of gas or liquid, which liquid in particular, gas isn't so big of a deal other than it takes up a lot of space. So under pressure, it gets liquefied, like liquefied natural gas. But if you can solidify a liquid, you no longer have to worry about the kinetics. It's just pure weight. And water, or a liquid, when it shifts, causes things to change the direction that it's going.
Yeah, so the solid would seem like the best for long term.
Yeah. Now, how long it stays under the water, how it's sequestered, it makes a big difference, but I don't know what they're actually talking about in the sense of where they're going to place it. They're just talking about putting it at the bottom of the ocean. It'll be cold enough, maybe it'll sustain its sequestration. It won't melt, but I don't know. I can't imagine that this is actually the end result. They're very nebulous about it in this article.
Yeah, and there's a lot of ifs and ands and buts.
they just drop, sequestration. Oh, okay. So compaction
wave
and
a
sealing
magic
of
wand
hydrates.
and then it just happens.
It's kind of like nuclear material, right? They glassify it and then they encase it and then they store it in some vault somewhere underground in granite so that it doesn't leak its radiation. Eventually something will happen. This sequestration they're talking about compaction and sealing of hydrates. Once it's sealed up, it's kind of like encasing a battery, a lithium ion battery. If anything punctures a lithium ion battery, prepare well.
That's what we need, is like an underwater explosion.
Yeah, and the possibility of that being that happening, I guess it's possible, but we don't even know what would happen. So I'm really curious about it. I'm sure that there's going to be more research that gets published about this, and when it crosses our path, we'll talk about it here in Technology Today. Let's move on. The next article is over in Technology Today. Invisible shield wearing air curtain blocks 99.8% of aerosol viruses. So they're talking about airborne. Headworn tech from University of Michigan startup could protect agricultural and industrial workers from airborne pathogens. Apparently it's a hard hat.
I wonder if this is for bird flu specifically.
Well, it's for anything that might involve airborne viruses. So let's take a look at what this thing is. It's weird. It doesn't look like this thing is revolutionary. When I heard about it, I was like, okay, like it's a downward facing fan, kind of like an air blade that dries your hands in a bathroom, except that it's on your head.
Right. I could see something like that. This looks like a hard hat.
It is.
Some goggles.
Well, I don't know I think those are her safety glasses. But I think this might be like an air blade and pointing down across your face so that it's basically stopping airborne pathogens from being inhaled. But if you're inhaling the air, any direction that it comes from is still going to get into your system. So University of Michigan put the article together. It's over at scitechdaily.com. And they do have a picture of it. So if you're listening to this via the podcast and there are people that are downloading the podcast, you're going to have to go and look at this thing. But it looks like a hard hat with a silver tube wrapping around the front of it. And that's it. There might be some other attachment, but maybe they'll have some diagram or something. So it's head-worn tech from University of Michigan startup could protect agricultural and industrial workers from airborne pathogens. Let's see here. Oh, yeah, that's what? Is this like a backpack on them? Anyway.
I hope so, or because it's really odd.
So this looks like it wraps around about 90% of their face. And it says independent third-party testing of Taza Aya's device showed the effectiveness of the air curtain, curved to encircle the face, coming from nozzles at the hat's brim. But for the air curtain to effectively protect against pathogens in the room, it must first be cleansed of pathogens itself. Previous research by the group of Taza Aya co-founder Herrick Clack, associate professor of civil and environmental engineering, showed that their method can remove and kill 99% of airborne viruses in farm and laboratory settings. So the weird thing about this, when I'm thinking about it in a lab environment or airborne viruses in a farm, this thing is kicking up air. It's causing
exactly rotation. So where is that going?
Right. Everybody else is getting screwed.
Right.
Because it's kicking up.
That's what I was thinking too. Plus, if you're infected with anything, it might be pushing your airborne stuff. Maybe not.
Yeah, it's like it's a virus supercharger that blows your viruses all over the place. So it says harnessing non-thermal plasma for pathogen removal. Fire has been used throughout history for sterilization, and while it might not usually think of it this way, it's known as thermal plasma. Pardon me, I just hit my mic. Non-thermal or cold plasmas are made of highly energetic, electrically charged molecules and molecular fragments that achieve a similar effect without the heat. So those ions and molecules stabilize quickly, becoming an ordinary air before reaching the curtain nozzle. So it's basically sterilized inside the nozzle, and then when it's emitted, it is sterile. But it has to be creating vortexes on the inside and outside. Any air current, it's basically a very fluid. Air is nothing but a fluid. You just don't see it. You can with certain types of visualization techniques, but the backpack is basically a battery and a generator. It features a backpack weighing roughly 10 pounds that houses the non-thermal plasma module, air handler, electronics, and units, battery backpack. And the handler draws air into the module where it's treated before flowing into the air curtain's nozzle array. So not quite an air blade, a bunch of holes. So it sucks in air and then sterilizes it and blows it down across your face. I don't know what you're breathing because it can't just be the air from the air nozzles.
I mean, unless it's so super powered that that's the only air flowing over your face.
This is interesting. But they say that they've got testing. It says to date, paper masks have been the main strategy. Moving away from that, other than a clean suit, for crying out loud, you basically don't have any other options. I feel like this is overly confident, like the hubris is legit, but maybe it's mine. They were named the awardee of the Invisible Shield Quick Fire Challenge, a competition created by Johnson & Johnson Innovation in cooperation with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. The program sought to encourage the development of technologies that could protect people from airborne viruses while having minimal impact on daily life. You'd think a mask wouldn't have any impact on daily life. Just put it on.
Oh, I know, but there's been such... Well, I'm not going to get into that.
Yeah, there's been a lot of uproar around wearing masks. That's fine. So, essentially, it's Airblade, but it sterilizes the air, whereas Airblade just blows air on you and either dries your hands or does whatever it needs to do, I suppose. Want to keep going?
Sure.
So the next article is over in Technology Today as well. MRSA vaccine breakthrough. Scientists find a promising way to fight a deadly superbug. Researchers have made significant progress in the fight against MRSA, MRSA, but it's typically pronounced MRSA, by enhancing vaccine efficacy through targeting IL-10, an immune-suppressing molecule. So Trinity College Dublin put the article together. It's published at SciTech Daily.
So MRSA is one of those things that is a real problem in hospitals, particularly for people undergoing things like surgeries.
Yeah, it's essentially a superbug that a bacterium that once you have it, it's very difficult to remove. And what's weird about it is it's like mostly found inside hospitals for whatever reason. And when somebody does get it, it seems to compromise them really quickly. The bacterium Staphylococcus aureus is one of the leading causes of community and hospital-acquired bacterial infection and is associated with over 1 million deaths worldwide each year. Unfortunately, antibiotics are becoming increasingly less effective against the bacterium, with antibiotic-resistant form MRSA responsible for the highest number of deaths in high-income countries that are attributable to antimicrobial-resistant bacterial infections. So as a result, scientists are keenly focused on finding a solution. One of these papers appears to be the bacterium's ability to dampen the immune response by turning on one of the natural brakes that exist within the immune system, an important immune suppressive molecule known as interleukin 10 or IL-10, which acts to reduce inflammation in the body. So I guess it turns it off, right? That's what they're saying. During these asymptomatic interactions, the bacterium is, however, shaping the immune response, meaning that when a vaccine against S. aureus is administered, the immune system struggles to respond appropriately because it's been suppressed by the Staphylococcus aureus MRSA virus or bacteria. Make sense?
Well, I think the neutralization is what allows the vaccine to work, right?
No, I believe it's the other way around.
Okay, maybe I've got it confused.
The virus is suppressing the response, and when you get a vaccine, it can't use the natural immune system to promote a response against the virus because the virus has been suppressing the immune system. If I'm recalling this all properly. So while typically harmless, it can cause a range of mild to severe infections if it enters the body through cuts or wounds. Infections can include skin issues like boils and impetigo, and more serious problems such as pneumonia, bloodstream infections, endocarditis. So it has its ability to develop resistance against antibiotics, notably seen in MRSA, or methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, which is difficult to treat and is known for causing severe hospital-acquired infections.
Yeah, this will be significant if they can get this through testing and commercially marketed.
Yeah, so let's back up one little step here. It says, as a result, scientists are keenly focused on finding solutions to turn the tide in fighting S. aureus-related infections. One hugely appealing option is a vaccine, but while some progress has been made on that front in recent years, a number of major hurdles remain. One of those appear to be the bacterium's ability to dampen the immune response by turning on one of the natural brakes that exist within the immune system, an important immune suppressive molecule known as IL-10, which acts to reduce inflammation in the body.
Oh, so IL-10 is good for you, but this bacteria
suppresses it.
So then, okay, I think I got confused because it sounded like it was going the other direction.
Right. So when the vaccine is used to amplify the natural ability to fight the bacterium, it can't because there isn't enough material released by the body to fight the bacterium utilizing the vaccine. So with this, they're basically, the researchers showed in animal model that if they immunized subjects with the vaccine that primed their immune systems to respond to infection in tandem with antibodies that neutralized IL-10, the immune response was improved and bacterial clearance was likewise improved following subsequent infection. So if you can manage surviving the current infection, because this vaccine would assist, your future one would be primed, any future infection would be primed against the infection, so you would have greater survivability.
Right, so you might not even need the vaccine again.
Correct, Yeah.
Or as much of it or whatever.
Except it'll
It
wobble.
might, yeah,
Yeah.
build a better mousetrap.
Yeah. That's kind of survival of the fittest. Let's keep going. The next article, except as I've always said here, science and technology short circuits natural selection. And so while we're building vaccines, genetically, we aren't as strong until we get genetic manipulation capabilities that progress from generation to generation. We're still victims of natural selection, except that we use science and technology to, short circuit that. I keep hitting my mic. Which isn't a bad thing. A great number of people, including myself, wouldn't be alive without science and technology. So I'm not promoting, we need to move away from taking vaccines and all of that. So,
but the point is, as an overall population, we're not necessarily protected from some of these things. Vaccines are a way to
augment,
kind of overcome or augment that.
Yep.
But even better would be that we, for instance, adapt
correct
to be resistant to MRSA or whatever the thing is.
Yep. So this next article is over on the Mobile channel. From robots and drones to sheep trackers, new tech can help farmers monitor and improve soil health. 12 million hectares of agricultural soil are lost globally through soil degradation every year. We have conversations about this on the regular, not this specific thing, but the fact that we use soil. As an ecologist, the author of this article work alongside farmers and growers in the field and have seen how farmers can help solve this global soil crisis. A lot of this actually, it's really interesting. They use plastic and cover up the fields, large swaths of it. We're now finding microplastics in every part of the human body and our foodstuffs, all along the food chain, from the ocean floor to...
Yeah, all geographic areas too.
So hopefully they're trying to figure out a way to avoid doing that. But let's see what Jennifer Roundtree from The Conversation put together here over at this phys.org article. Here's a little robot. Looks like a Boston Dynamics dog.
Yes, it does. Hopefully it's not the one that's scary.
Yeah, it doesn't have that extra joint, so we know that we can maybe outrun it. We'll see. Just have to outrun the battery. That's the thing. So, a report by the UK government's environmental agency. That they have a thing called the Environment Agency.
I don't think I've ever heard of that before this article. You'd think we would have come across it in ohmTown if nowhere else.
Environment Agency. In 2019, estimated that 17% of soils in England and Wales show signs of erosion. An estimated 4 million hectares of agricultural land were at risk of compaction, with soil compressed by grazing animals or heavy machinery so that air pockets between soil particles get squeezed out. Another 300,000 hectares of soil were contaminated with pollutants. By the way, if all of the air gets out, then roots don't get enough air. They can't actually do what they need to do to bring nutrients into the plant. And you'd be surprised. There is an area. So the plant, when the seed is put in the ground, there's an area of the roots that grow down. Some of those roots have tiny little hairs on them, and those hairs actually breathe not water, they breathe air. It isn't the stem and the leaves and all of that. They're doing photosynthesis, and they're off-gassing and they're breathing in oxygen and exhaling O2. It's the respiratory process of the plants, but their roots are actually a portion of the root actually breathes in air. That's why I use in my planting operations. So I grow microgreens. I haven't for a little while lately, but basically you want the roots to grow down and then into water, but there's a gap that you pump air into so that they always have fresh air. And that can be dry as a bone, roughly. Maybe not dry, but It doesn't have to be in water. It actually drowns a plant. So if it gets compacted, no air can get to those roots and the plant can't grow as strong. And that's why they're talking about that air pockets between soil particles get squeezed out. So, but metrics in soil health are difficult to quantify, and regular systematic sampling strategies to assess soil function are rarely adopted by governments over the long term. And businesses aren't going to do any of that babysitting until it makes economic sense to do so. So farmers are increasingly considering practices such as regenerative agriculture that limit damage to and even help regenerate soils, planting cover crops, reducing or carefully managing stocking rates, direct drilling, reduced tillage strategies, as well as planting trees and increasing organic matter can all help. This is the only way to mass produce plants. There's no economic way. Vertical farming inside warehouses and whatnot take power. It costs more. Natural use of the sun
And you
is the
can't
only
do
thing.
as large scale.
Right.
I mean, depends on the size of the operation, but
Yeah, and it's free energy, you know, and you produce so much that predation doesn't really factor in. You try to get it mitigated, but for the most part, you spray things on it, or you find some other, what do they call it? I can't remember what they call it, but it's, you know, you hire a cat,
like a natural pesticide.
yeah,
Oh,
or
yeah,
a
okay.
predator of the thing that's eating your crops. So they're using things like satellite sensors to monitor the actual soil from remote. They're using soil sensors to detect when things change inside that soil. Individual sensors similar to Fitbits and other activity loggers are increasingly used to monitor animal welfare, particularly in indoor farming systems. For example, cows, sensors that detect movement can also be used on sheep and cows grazing outdoors so that they know where the animals are at all times. And if the animals never go to a soil or to a region that has a crop or something that they're supposed to be nibbling on, then they know that the soil might be bad because the animals are better determinants of more subtle changes in the soil and the makeup of the material they're supposed to be eating or walking around on. And then
Do
things
you
like
think the
DNA.
animals are comparing their Fitbits?
Yeah, that's exactly it. How many steps did you get in? 10,000.
How many plants did you nibble today?
Yeah, all of them. I nibbled on all of them.
It's like the big sheep in Shaun the Sheep. Yes.
Yeah, oh, that's right. That big old thing. Hold on one second. Sorry for the dead air. So it says here fungal diseases that live in soil and can devastate crops such as fusarium can be detected using simple methods similar to COVID tests. Using handheld sequencers, the author has been able to work with organic growers to produce pictures of microbial communities in fields with different crops and management practices. These methods only take a few days to produce results, meaning that the impact of changing practice can be seen quickly. So the article basically hints at a whole bunch of little pieces of technology that can be deployed. I think the biggest problem would be like satellite. It says satellite mounted sensors have revolutionized the data available to visualize landscapes, including farms. It's expensive to have a satellite take a picture of
It
you.
is, and it's not feasible for a small farm probably to deploy this. I'm assuming something like the drones would be the cheapest because they could use it in an expensive one and not have a ton of them.
And I'm not really well versed in all of the prices, but there are some where it's just generic pictures, and then there are some where it has sensor data measuring out things like off-gassing from the soil and other like ground penetrating radar and things like that that look well beyond just the surface data. That may increase the price dramatically, but I don't know what that price is anymore. It's been a long time since I looked at that kind of stuff, but it was expensive when I looked at it.
But they talk about. I do think this is neat. I don't think of farmers as being the most technologically advanced, but several articles at ohmTown are showing the otherwise.
And it really depends on the size of the farm. If it's a small mom and pop shop, they're not using technology like this because it doesn't make economic sense. But wondering about degradation and water content of the soil and see changes over time, you can actually see that with a drone. In fact, we talked about Time Team earlier today, I think it was, where they're using drones and ground penetrating radar to map out what the content of the ground is and to see the rises and falls and valleys and beeps and whistles of the terrain. This is definitely doable for even a small farm to map out what the content is, but at the ground level, definitely not satellite.
Right. I think that was in our non-sequitur news for today.
Yeah. Go back and check that out. The next article is over in non-sequitur news. Tiny implant fights cancer with light. We keep hearing stories about light being effective in destroying various things. New implantable LED device uses light to treat deep-seated cancers. Certain types of light have proven to be effective in minimally invasive treatment for cancers located on or near the skin when combined with a light reactive drug or activated drug. But deep-seated cancers surrounded by tissue, blood, bone have always been a problem because the light's therapeutic effects can't go to that location. Well, to bring light's benefits to these harder to reach cancers, researchers have devised a wireless LED device that can be implanted. The device, when combined with a light sensitive dye, not only destroys the cancer cells, it mobilizes the immune system's cancer targeting response as well. So
okay, this is really amazing if it does half of what it's saying.
So what's really neat about this is I have made similar devices to this where it uses what amounts to a magnetic field to activate the light. It can be, my use case was for a product that I was developing, but it had already been in existence. But I had been making them my own design. And then I found out later that somebody had created these things and were commercially available. They were bigger than mine, but cheaper because they're mass produced. Well, Carla Cruz from Notre Dame put this article together for futurity.org. And it says, certain types of light have been proven effective. So what are these? Certain colors of light penetrate tissue deeper than other ones. It turns out that the kind of light, in this case green, that doesn't penetrate as deeply has the capability of producing a more robust response against cancer cells. So before the light can be effective in destroying the cancer cells, a dye with light-absorbing molecules must be administered to the cells. The device turns on, the dye transfers the light into energy, and that energy makes the cell's own oxygen toxic, effectively turning the cancer itself against itself. Pretty brilliant. So while other treatments will weaponize the cell's own oxygen, this device causes a particularly serendipitous form of cell death. I always have a problem with the remnants of, when the cell dies, it isn't necessarily a complete demise. It's not destroyed. So you have free cancer cells floating around. Their goal is to induce just a little of pyroptotic cell death, which will then trigger the immune system to start attacking the cancer. So it's particularly good at triggering the immune response, a particular kind of cell death, that pyroptosis. In future studies, the device will be used in mice to see whether the cancer-killing response initiated in one tumor will prompt the immune system to identify and attack another cancerous tumor on its own. I hope that that actually proves positive, because what apparently normally happens is when one tumor is deactivated, the potential for another elsewhere that is unknown can reactivate.
Yeah, it's almost like a power struggle, and then one's taken out, but another steps in.
Yeah. So they say it's about the size of a grain of rice, can be injected directly into a cancerous tumor and activated remotely by an external antenna. The goal is to use the device not only to deliver treatment, but also monitor the tumor's response, adjusting signal strength and timing as needed. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, this is very cool.
Okay, let's keep going though. The next article is over in Technology Today over at ohmTown.com. Be sure, really, it's a great solution for information overload. I use it every day, as does the Sentient AI, and many other people.
You mean ohmTown overall?
Yeah, ohmTown overall. There's 50 channels. They may not all be of interest to you, but you can actually subscribe to the ones you're interested in. And once you're a citizen, you can actually create lists separate from these two lists, where on the front page, not on each individual channel, but on the front pages, or the front page of ohmTown, you can actually hide articles that you're not interested in, or save articles en masse, just by swiping left or right. It's pretty cool. Well, this article is over at Technology Today. It was aggregated, and we only get a little snippet from the provider. And it says offshore wind turbines offer path for clean hydrogen production. And we've been talking about hydrogen production because it's rather difficult. It needs energy. But if you can actually grab the raw materials from the location and generate from the power of the wind turbine itself, it seems like a pretty easy, 1-2. So using electricity generated by offshore wind turbines is one pathway to split water to produce clean hydrogen. May make economic sense, particularly along the U.S. Atlantic coast and the Gulf of Mexico, according to researchers at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. So the article is from Tech Explorer. Wayne Hicks from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory put the article together. And essentially drawing power from the wind turbines, sending it to either an on land or a platform facility to generate the hydrogen through electrolysis, splitting the water into hydrogen and oxygen. And then the oxygen recombines with the air into water. So
you can basically keep repeating the cycle.
Correct. And capturing the hydrogen, and then you can actually port that wherever you need it to, because it's portable. So the economics work best in regions where the water is not as deep and the wind is strong, according to their findings in a recently published article, Potential for Large-Scale Deployment of Offshore Wind to Hydrogen Systems in the United States. Again, there's been a problem with hydrogen generation and helium generation. Both of those have always been a struggle, but this is speaking directly to hydrogen. So the ability to produce it at a cost that approaches the U.S. Department of Energy goal for low-cost clean hydrogen depends significantly on both the technology used and the location of the production, because then it has to be ported somewhere safely, securely. An electrolyzer powered by a renewable energy source produces what is known as clean hydrogen. Through its Hydrogen Shot initiative, DOE is leading efforts to reduce the cost of clean hydrogen to $1 a kilogram by 2031. Achieving $2 could make it cost competitive in some applications compared with the conventional carbon-intensive methods of producing hydrogen. Now, we've discussed various things about this, and there is actually a catalyst right now, and I can't remember what it is. We did a show about it a while back, but it is in this nascent little tiny form in a lab kind of a setting. But they were using solar panels that were laid out in their parking lot to provide energy for this. I think this might be the next possible step, moving out of that lab. Yeah, this is
like larger scale, right?
Yeah. But they were using, I can't remember what they used as the electrolyzer. but it was this tiny little cylinder that had something in it. And maybe they talk about it further on in the article, but they don't even say what the company is that's doing this.
Well, I'm not sure there is a company yet. Isn't this academic right now?
Well, yeah, but there's usually...
It could be a company because I think there was a grant or something.
Yeah,
mentioned,
there's
right?
usually
Like they
tech
talked about the
exchanges.
DOE.
Yeah. So the study showed promising indicators of what large-scale deployment of offshore wind to hydrogen could look like, and will be continued area of interest as new and better technologies continue to be developed in this area. But one of the issues has been it costs more in the carbon footprint right now to generate the electricity that's used for the electrolyzer to split water into hydrogen and oxygen. And then from there, transporting the hydrogen away, releasing the oxygen, the O2, so that it can recombine, and then you end up with water again on the other side, or you capture them both. So to fully harness the electricity generated by offshore wind farms for hydrogen production, substantial electrolyzers are needed, along with the ancillary equipment for water treatment, hydrogen storage, and transportation. So you need somewhat clean water. Otherwise, the contaminants would basically ruin the electrolyzer's efficiency. But it says hydrogen was then transported via pipelines to shore for storage. So they were splitting desalinated seawater at the offshore wind plant site. So pretty cool. I like this idea.
That's very cool. I also like that they're locating specific regions where this is more feasible. Like Gulf of Mexico has to be fantastic for this. Think about all the wind there, at least during hurricane season.
Now we're producing too much.
Right, exactly. They're spinning too fast.
Which probably happens. I've never looked into what they do when a hurricane comes.
I suspect they take them offline, but...
Yeah, I mean, can you lock them down, turn the blades, something that allows it to not be twisted out of alignment? I don't know. Yeah, I'll have to look into it. I've never looked, nor have I looked into Tornado Alley and
right.
wind generation
farms.
It
wouldn't have to just be hurricanes.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep going. The next article is over in Technology Today as well. Not all of our articles come from the same silo of information aggregation. Just happens to be Technology Today.
Well, and usually in a weekly, most of them will be.
Yeah. But I don't want you to go in thinking, oh, ohmTown is so efficient and effective. I want you to be able to go and look at other sections, because something may key into it being aggregated and wanted, or some other of the channels, but we do our best for the show to grab stuff that we think is, for this particular show, higher level of technology, science, research, and development. Well, in this article over in Technology Today, missing link uncovered, Hubble unveils hidden black hole in Omega Centauri. Won't go into the reads about this, but you certainly can. Space Telescope Science Institute put the article together. This is over at SciTech Daily. So obviously you can see the black hole, right? Never mind. So an international team of astronomers has used more than 500 images from NASA's Hubble Space Telescope, spanning 2 decades of observation, to detect 7 fast-moving stars in the innermost region of the globular star cluster Omega Centauri, largest and brightest globular cluster in the sky. These stars provide new compelling evidence for the presence of the gravitational pull from an intermediate mass black hole, or IMBH. Its actual categorization tugging on them. Only a few other IMBH candidates have been found to date. If you go online, you can do a search for galaxies moving around a black hole, and they actually circle the path of these galaxies, and in the center of where several galaxies are looping around nothing is a black hole. that's how they know that a black hole is there. And so they take all of these images and parse them basically like a flip book, and watch the dance
Like to
of
see what's being surrounded or something.
what's moving in what direction. And nowadays they use artificial intelligence to parse this in bulk, millions at
To
a time.
find patterns or
Yeah.
odd anomalies.
Yeah. And then they send the AI, the software sends a notice to a human, hey, we have a candidate. And then that gets verified. So it's really interesting. So they've got a bunch of images. The black hole at Omega Centauri is estimated to be 8,200 times that of our sun. If confirmed, it's closer to Earth than the 4.3 million solar mass black hole at the center of the Milky Way. Because we're on an outer arm, and it's at some angle, perpendicular
And
to
it's
us.
like a spiral elliptical or something.
And so that black hole is 26,000 light years away, while Omega Centauri is 17,700 light years away. So because of the distance.
Oh, that's odd. I guess we're just, like at the edge. So that's
Right.
how we're closer to that than one in our own area.
Yeah, so we're like this, right? We're on the plane, and while we're on the edge, the black hole is way over here at the center of our galaxy. But that black hole is right here, and it's bisecting the angle.
Interesting.
So, we're gonna hop in our jet and or our rocket and fly 17,700 light years over to Omega Centauri to see what's
Right,
going
but
on.
how many years are we going to wait to do that so we don't have to pass another ship doing that?
Like 2 months. That's what the article said the other
right.
day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So most black holes are either extremely massive, like the supermassive black holes that lie at the cores of large galaxies, or relatively lightweight with a mass under 100 times that of the sun. Intermediate mass black holes, or IMBHs, are scarce, however, and are considered rare missing links in black hole evolution. I suppose it depends on how much mass they gobble up in their formation. The stars provide new compelling evidence for the presence of gravitational pull from an intermediate mass black hole tugging on them, and they reiterate that there's only a few. I find it really interesting that we're discovering these things. We don't see them. We see their radio signature at times, but for the most part, we only see their effect on other bodies. The really weird thing about this is it isn't a planet that's getting tugged. It's a galaxy.
Yeah, the scale of this is really unfathomable.
Yep. So we discovered 7 stars that should not be there. They are moving so fast that they would escape the cluster and never come back. The most likely explanation is that the very massive object is gravitationally pulling on these stars and keeping them close to the center. The only object that can be so massive is a black hole with a mass at least 8,200 times that of our sun. So it's pulling on the entire solar system, the system that holds that sun. And that's just, these are like the small elements that make up like massive clusters in regions of space with more and more. And Hubble, you're looking at this and you go, oh gosh, look at all of those stars out there, and look at all those galaxies that are out there. Here's the kicker. The Webb looks past this and sees more than what you see in the frame usually. So what we see isn't necessarily the totality of the light that is being sent to us. And these things don't exist anymore, possibly. Some of these probably don't exist anymore because they take so long for the light to get to us. They're so far away.
They could be light years in the past, right?
Yep. They could have already flamed out. We actually know of one that's going to go nova. We don't know if it's going to supernova. And it was supposed to happen recently, but I didn't look into it. I didn't babysit it. But there were a series of, it was winking and getting brighter, and they estimated that something like last week, it was supposed to nova, be really bright and then just flame out.
Oh, I think I saw some headlines about that.
Yeah. But like everything associated with ohmTown, I learn a little bit about a lot of things, and that's kind of my coping mechanism. And I use it in my professional life outside of being mayor of ohmTown. So let's keep going, though. The next article is over in Technology Today. Prepping for departure, cargo packed, astronauts focused on science and spacesuits. A cargo craft will soon depart from the ISS with its journey live streamed by NASA. Alongside, the crew conducts biological research and equipment maintenance. So, this is from NASA. It's over at scitechdaily.com. The cargo craft will soon depart from ISS. This thing is... Northrop Grumman's Cygnus resupply ship will end its stay at the orbital outpost at 7 a.m. on Friday. Robotics controllers will command Canadarm2. It's the Canadarm2, but they refer to it as Canadarm2 robotic arm to remove Cygnus from the Unity module and then release it into orbit, where it will descend into the Earth's atmosphere above the South Pacific. Is it going to land, or is it going to end up in somebody's living room?
I don't know. And what's going to happen with the people on board?
Yeah, so this is a weekly show, which means that it took place on Friday. It was live streamed on NASA TV. It'll be on YouTube. I'll end up watching it, but just so you know, now you know, and you can go and look it up so that you can see it. It actually began at 6:30 a.m. on Friday. Let's see. It replenished the crew with over 8,200 pounds of science experiments and crew supplies. So I wonder where it was supposed to land. Did it say? I didn't recall.
I don't think it did.
It'll have results from a genetic biotechnology experiment, which may improve ways to keep crews healthy and spacecraft systems clean on future missions. Because if y'all don't know about it, there's a bacterial problem on the ISS.
And occasionally tomatoes go missing.
They find them eventually. Right? They found that one like behind a door.
Like after a year.
So one of the NASA flight crew engineer, Mike Barrett, started his day by drawing his blood samples and stowing them in a science freezer for future analysis. You know, this is how you end up with some alien life form.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is all...
Do you wake up and go, yay, I get to do a blood draw?
No. But that's why I'm not a flight engineer. Okay, let's keep going. We have two more articles to go through. This next one is about new bioethanol. It's in Technology Today. New bioethanol monitoring method could boost revenue by $1.6 billion and cut CO2 emissions by 2 million tons, which is kind of a drop in the bucket, but a new method for monitoring contamination in bioethanol production could boost industry revenue by $1.6 billion and cut CO2 emissions by 2 million tons. The Novo Nordisk Foundation Center for Biosustainability put the article together. It's over at scitechdaily.com. I don't know how much of this is like marketing side, but this pioneering study reveals how strain dynamics are directly involved in process performance, emphasizing the need for improved microbial control techniques to enhance industrial efficiency. I'm curious about something, but let's see. They investigated the contaminant population from the sugarcane bioethanol production process at strain level resolution. So depending on what kind of negative influence is being imparted on sugarcane, it produces bioethanol at a different rate. That's strain level resolution. So a major renewable energy source, bioethanol, is derived from the fermentation of sugars by yeast, primarily Saccharomyces cerevisiae. However, the contaminant bacteria present in the raw material can significantly affect fermentation efficiency. Until now, these contaminant microbes have been characterized using methods that did not fully capture their diversity or impact. one of the things that we've talked about here in technology today is that when stress is imparted upon a plant, it reacts evolutionarily. It changes its structure, and even its seeds have the modification of its strain.
Yeah, it's like in real time compared to animals.
Yeah, it literally reacts, and I say literally, like it physically reacts to the strain. If it has copious amounts of gosh, gotta stop hitting. I'm waving my hands around.
Are you punching that microphone again?
I keep. So one of the things that we talked about was the fact that the root system of certain plants, when they are put under strain, they become less efficient, less effective, or they bulk up. And so when a plant gets all of the nutrients it wants, its root system sucks because it's getting everything it needs. It doesn't need to be robust. But if you dry out, if you change the chemistry, but it's subtle enough that it doesn't kill the plant, it may become robust and push stronger roots down. And that's kind of what this is talking about. But it says our research provides a comprehensive analysis of microbial populations across all stages of the industrial bioethanol process in 2 major Brazilian biorefineries. By using a combination of shotgun metagenomics and cultivation-based methods, we identified ecological factors that influence community dynamics and bioconversion efficiency. Essentially, they influenced by temperature, they can either hinder or enhance ethanol yield. That's what that strain level resolution does. This improvement can only be achieved by with the advanced techniques we utilized. So depending on what kind of strain they put on it, and it could be down to the plant, it could be down to soil, it could be down to regions. If they can impress a positive strain on the plant so that it increases yield, then you basically make more in the smaller footprint, lowering the carbon footprint dramatically, i.e.
Right,
reducing.
which is just all good or all around good, right?
Yep.
And then also, if it's actually used for ICE vehicles, I'm assuming that helps with emissions there as well.
If you can convert it into bioethanol, yeah, you can convert vehicles into bioethanol. So the findings could result in more than 5% increase, which translates into $1.6 billion in increased revenue because they produce more, and a reduction in CO2 emissions by around 2 million tons per year because it produces more in a smaller footprint. It doesn't cost as much in terms of carbon generation to obtain that same
Right,
volume.
like it's not as energy intensive. And this is only in Brazil for the reduction. So that could be, although Brazil is one of the larger countries, it could be significant across the globe.
Well, and it's actually beneficial across all plants, all production, because if you do the same level of analysis for strain, then you can maximize the benefit of any crop by finding out what strain produces more, causes it to produce more, or use less. Like I can do it in our hydroponic systems by testing what modification increases yield and makes the plant stronger, and increases perhaps nutrient embodiment. It's not something that's easily done because it can be as simple as 1 microgram difference in a nutrient mix. I just don't know because I've never done it. I've been following standard practices or my own modifications to the nutrient mix, water levels, aeration.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of variables that go into plant production.
Yeah. Particularly at like food safety security levels. I mean, this is the world's food that we're talking about. So imagine something going into practice that ruins it.
Yeah, they
It
would
can be
need to
catastrophic.
be pretty sure about their research.
Yeah. So our last article for Technology Today is over in Technology Today, The Invisible Hijackers, How Respiratory Bacteria Sabotage Our Immune System. University of Queensland researchers have unveiled how Haemophilus influenza manipulates immune responses to foster chronic respiratory infections by deactivating immune defenses, kind of like that other bacteria, the MRSA bacteria.
Yes, the one for the MRSA vaccine. And then also maybe they need some air curtains up here.
We're tying it all together. You see how we're all connected. University of Queensland is the source of this article. Well, they're the ones that wrote the article, but it's published by SciTech Daily. And so by deactivating immune defenses, the bacterium avoids detection and exacerbates conditions like asthma and COPD. The findings suggest potential for new treatments that boost the immune system's ability to counteract this bacterium. The bacterium, again, is Haemophilus influenza, a bacterium associated with respiratory infections that manipulates the human immune system to persist. The study investigated the virulence mechanisms of Haemophilus influenza, a bacterium that plays a significant role in worsening respiratory tract infections. In some conditions, such as asthma and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD, they can drastically worsen symptoms. The researchers prepared human nasal tissue in the lab, growing it to resemble the surfaces of the human respiratory tract, and then monitored gene expression changes over a 14-day infection. So the bacterium...
That sounds like it belongs in Reality Hacker.
So it proved that the bacteria can actively reduce the human immune response. So they don't necessarily know why, right? Rare behavior that many other bacteria don't possess. If local immunity drops, for example, during a viral infection, the bacteria may be able to take over and cause more severe infection. So the virus weakens it and the bacteria takes over. The findings will lead to future work toward new treatments to prevent. I think these people need to talk to the MRSA people.
I agree. Although they're in different journals, but I'm sure they're reading up on these things.
Oh, yeah.
If they're doing bacteria research, they're probably looking at other people's bacteria research.
That's really fascinating. They found very limited production of inflammation molecules, just like that other one, over time, which normally would be produced within hours of bacteria infecting human cells. So Haemophilus influenza basically puts the brakes on the immune response by stopping inflammation molecules.
Yeah, this is really on a parallel track with the MRSA research.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I wonder if they know each other. I don't know. Maybe I can send an email. Hey, do y'all know about this?
Check out this article. You can send one to each of them.
There you go. And do like Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. 2 scientists enter, 1 scientist leaves. All right. Well, the bacteria is going to hijack my cursor and drive us back to Technology Today's front page. You can get there too if you want to by going over to ohmTown.com and then mousing over Gadgets and Technology and then clicking on Technology Today. It'll refresh and it'll post what has been aggregated since our show started, because I stopped it beforehand. So massive black hole awakening sheds light on galactic behavior and other things going on in the tech community. All right, folks, but that's it for Technology Today. We're actually going to reset real quick. We'll be back in maybe 10 minutes, 13 minutes, and we will do one last show, which is all about automotive technology, which is called Four Wheel Tech. And it usually runs about an hour. So see you soon. In the meantime, thanks for watching. I am Mayor Watt, and that is the Sentient AI from the future.
Good night, and thanks for joining us for Technology Today. We'll have another episode of this next weekend, but stay tuned for Four Wheel Tech.
Beep, beep. Massive black hole.